And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi there, I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan, and this is your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Sunday, August 24th, 2025. And looking at the flight weather map to start out on Monday, setting things up on this Sunday, we have low pressure crossing the western half of the Aleutians west of Adak. It's quickly heading northeastward, and that low will get all the way up around the Seward Peninsula by Monday afternoon. And it's going to have another surge of moisture and some gustier winds. And as that happens, the rainfall will be enhanced across areas of the western interior, especially the southern slopes of the Brooks Range and higher terrain around the Seward Peninsula. But looking at IFR conditions, pretty extensive Monday morning. Parts of the Brooks Range over toward Coldfoot and Arctic Village, and then all along the west arm of the Alaska Range, the southwest interior, Yukon, Kuskokwim River lower halves there, and then along the western portion of the Gulf, eastern Kenai, Prince William Sound, and out across a good portion of the Bering, the entire Alaska Peninsula and Aleutian Chain. And to Monday afternoon, we find conditions lift a bit, improve to MVFR along the Gulf Coast here. There could be a few light showers, but still this ridge of high pressure is holding on. Southern Panhandle and even the interior north could see another very warm day Monday afternoon. As temperatures in that 75 to near 80 degree range. That ridge is going to hold through early, even into the middle of the week before beginning to break down. And looking further west, so we have had already Monday afternoon, one low comes up like this. Another one will be coming up across the eastern Aleutians toward Kuskokwim Bay on Tuesday. And yet a third one come Thursday morning will be taking a track a little further east. So weather's going to remain very active across especially the southwest areas of the state, the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians here in the week ahead. And again, periods of rain continuing. Some of the rainfall on the heavier side, places like Ambler could end up with rainfall totals through Tuesday since, say, Friday or Saturday in excess of 4 inches. And then Tuesday morning, IFR conditions along the spine and south slopes of the Brooks Range. Could have some locally heavier rain in areas here. We have IFR conditions along the lower Yukon, Kuskokwim, as well as extending along, you can see right along the Alaska Range and also areas of Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai, extending down into the eastern Aleutians. And then Tuesday afternoon, we find IFR conditions from the Kuskokwim Bay, western portion of Bristol Bay, all up into the southwest interior, coming up along that section of the Yukon River, especially as you go Kaltag and Anvik and on up again, this area along the Brooks Range and North Slope. We also see an expanding area of IFR into the lower Gulf, east side of Kodiak Island and their south. And there'll be yet another low coming up, as I said, Thursday morning from the North Pacific toward the Alaska Peninsula. So pass conditions on Monday, Anaktuvik Pass, IFR becoming MVFR. Same thing, Atigun Pass, early in the day could be some IFR conditions becoming MVFR. And you also have that potential for the rain up there. Lake Clark, Merrill, IFR becoming VFR, especially eastern half of the pass. If you go west of the Alaska Range, you're going to be running more into MVFR or IFR conditions. Rainy Pass, same thing. IFR early, then VFR eastward. But if you're going toward the west entrance and further west of the Alaska Range, you're going to run into MVFR and IFR conditions. Windy Pass, IFR becoming VFR, and Isabel Pass, MVFR in the morning becoming VFR. And Metasta Pass far enough east in drier air, influence of that weak high pressure ridge, so Metasta Pass should stay VFR in the far part of the eastern Alaska Range. Tanita Pass, MVFR early Monday, giving way to VFR, and Portage Pass is looking generally IFR in the morning, especially the eastern half of the pass out to Prince William Sound becoming MVFR, and then the west entrance becoming VFR there Monday afternoon. Chilkoot and White could see some MVFR conditions early in the day, Monday, then VFR. And looking at the freezing levels, the surface freezing line does dip down into the western Brooks Range. There is a little colder air coming in behind this front that's kind of hung up in this region. But we're watching another low. So Monday, right now, for Sunday afternoon, we have the low crossing right here between the western central Aleutians, just west of Adak, and then that's going to race northeast and cut across the Seward Peninsula early mid-afternoon on Monday. So ahead of this, a front and feet of moisture coming into the west, we have freezing levels above 12,000 feet for the southeast Bering, the lower Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. And of course, that more moist air coming northward into the interior and coming over the terrain all through here. That's why the rainfall, when you add it all up for a 3-4 day total, it adds up with the fact you're also getting some enhancement from the terrain. So a very, very wet period out here for the southwest, western, and central interior all through the early midweek period. And meanwhile, Panhandle still tapping in a little bit of that ridging, so with freezing levels higher, 12 and even up near 14,000 feet toward Haida Gwaii and Vancouver Island, there will be still some warm temperatures there. So you can clearly see with the icing threat where the frontal system, where the moisture is, where you have the thicker clouds producing the moderate to at times heavier rainfall. This feed coming up from the Pacific across the southeast Bering into the southwest and western portions of the mainland coast and central interior. So widespread moderate icing above 10,000 feet here along and north of the Yukon River, 12,000 feet as you get down toward the middle and lower, and above 14,000 feet, Kuskokwim region, and then 16,000 feet here south, just south of the eastern Aleutians, because this is deep moisture coming up, as I said, has tropical origins, and it's just streaming northeastward, so that's why we're just going to be stuck in a wetter pattern here for a good portion of the upcoming week. And looking at the jet stream pattern, 30,000 feet aloft, 300 millibars. You can see a little bit of that ridging here over south central, weak ridging, but here's the trough, broad trough, and here is that southwest flow coming up into the western side of the state. At mid-levels, 9,000 feet, 700 millibars. The winds are 50 to as high as 75 knots. Southwest flow from a good portion of the middle Yukon Valley and the central western interior. And that belt of winds, though not as strong, continues at around 40-45 knots through the eastern Aleutians and south of there down into the North Pacific. And then at 3,000 feet, you can clearly see a belt of winds on the order of 50 to as high as 60 knots from the middle Yukon down into Kuskokwim Bay. And that flow continues further southwestward there through the eastern Aleutians into the North Pacific. So, of course, there's going to be widespread turbulence all throughout areas of the central, western, southwest interior. Surface to 4,000 feet, low-level wind shear, and there could be pockets of severe turbulence within this region. So keep that in mind. And then extending down along, especially in through the central and eastern Aleutians, there could be widespread moderate turbulence on Monday. Surface to 3,000 feet.